Hi everyone, it's Lisa Mears. Thank you for joining me. In my video today, I'm going to be making 31 cards with the Spellbinders Santa Lane Christmas card making kit. This is a brand new kit for the Christmas season from Spellbinders, and I will have a link in the description box below for this kit. I previously did an unboxing of all of the contents in the kit, and I will link it here in the top right of the video as well as down in the description box if you want to see everything that's included in this kit. I will also have up close pictures and card measurements for all of the cards that I make in my video listed on my blog at lisamearsdesigns.com. So for this card, I'm using a piece of the dark green cardstock that came with the kit. I cut it down to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and that is going to be the mat for the pattern paper. So the tree pattern paper I cut down to 5 1/4 by 3 1/2, and I layered that towards the top half of the green solid cardstock. And then I have this black plaid pattern paper that I cut to 5 1/2 by 1/2 inches, and I put that towards the bottom. I'm taking this sentiment and I just cut it out with a rectangle die because I didn't want the entire sentiment. It had a lot of extra red around the edges and I wanted to trim it down. So I used a rectangle die to do that. I'm also going to add the sentiment and a couple of the hearts. So the sentiment says all hearts come home for Christmas, so I thought it was appropriate to add some of the heart ephemera from the kit. So I'm going to add the larger green heart and the smaller black heart, and that smaller black heart, it matches the pattern paper that's at the very bottom of that piece. So you can see how that paper matches, and that's why I chose to use the black plaid pattern paper at the bottom. I'm going to add the house ephemera piece off to the left, and then I'm going to take a chipboard sticker. This is a little red car with a tree on top. I'm going to add that to the card. So that black pattern paper, I wanted it to resemble a road so that the car is driving on the road. So now that that part is complete, I added it to an A2 size card base, and then I'm going to add some of the star stickers that came with the kit. So all of these stars and snowflakes, they are gold puffy stickers. So I'm going to add a few of them here. And I also want to mention that if you are unfamiliar with Spellbinders kits, they also include the card bases. So this kit actually included 13 A2 size card bases and envelopes and 12 5x7 card bases and matching envelopes. Although I don't use any of the 5x7 card bases, I do use all of the A2 plus some that are in my stash because all of the cards that I'm making today are A2 in size, and that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So I made 2 of these cards, and on the second card I used the dimensional sticker of the truck since there was only one chipboard sticker. And since there are 2 of every piece of the ephemera in the kit, you'll see that I've made a lot of cards the same. So I was able to get 2 of the same card for most of my cards. So moving on to my next card, I'm taking a piece of the plaid paper. I cut it to 5 1/4 by 3, and I'm adding that green wood grain piece at the bottom. That wood grain piece is 5 1/4 by 1 inch, and then I'm adding both of those pattern paper pieces to a piece of the red cardstock that measures 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 inches. So I'm going to be creating a living room scene with the ephemera that you saw there on the screen, and I thought it would be cute to have some rugs in my scene. So I used an oval die and I die cut the pattern paper. So I have 2 ovals and I'm going to use them as rugs for the living room to put underneath the furniture. So I go ahead and place all the ephemera where I want it, and then I'll glue all the pieces down. So you can see that that plaid pattern paper, that will represent the wall, and then the wood grain paper that I have at the bottom represents the wood floor. And then I have the 2 rugs underneath the furniture with the little dresser, the chair, and the Christmas tree. I'm adding the sentiment Home for the Holidays, and then I'm going to go ahead and add that to an A2 size card base. And finally, I'm going to take some of the gems that are in the kit, and I'm going to add 3 gold ones at the top right. I made 2 of these cards. I did change up the pattern paper for the wall part of that scene, and I also added the red gems to the second card. For my next card, I cut down the gray pattern paper with the white words on it. That measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and I layered that on the red cardstock that's 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. And then I took the pine needles paper, cut it down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and layered it onto red cardstock that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I cut a piece of solid white cardstock to 3/4 by 1 inch, and then I just cut a snowy hill out of the top. That snowy hill will be added to the smaller card layer, and it will fit perfectly within that gray pattern paper since I cut it to the exact measurements. I'm going to go ahead and add that smaller card layer to the larger card layer, just center it within it, and then I will go ahead and build my scene from here. So I'm going to start with the snowy hill. I'm going to add that to the gray pattern paper at the bottom, and then I'm going to be using the postal mail. This is a dimensional sticker. I'm going to use the Santa Claus ephemera piece. So I'm going to add the Santa Claus first. I'm going to pop this little white piece out underneath his hat because that doesn't need to be there. I'm going to go ahead and add him to the snowy hill. I'm going to go ahead and tuck in behind his hand this piece of mail. The piece of mail says, "Wishing you happy holidays." I am deciding what I want to use for the sentiment, and I chose this puffy sticker that says "Believe." I'm going to go ahead and add that at the top of this layer. And then for the rest of the sentiment, I'm going to use the puffy sticker that says "In the magic of the season." So the sentiment says "Believe in the magic of the season." And I just line that up at the bottom corner of the snow. And then I'm going to add some gold stars. These are from the ephemera pack that came with the kit. I'm going to add this to an A2 size card base. I love when I can create little scenes with the ephemera, and I think this scene is so cute. So that piece of mail that was on the postal box, it was covering up the word Santa mail, so I just moved that a little bit further down. So I made 2 cards, very similar. The only difference is I used a different sentiment. So this one says "Sending Holiday Cheer." I did use the Santa, I added the ho ho ho, and I also added the chipboard presents at the bottom because there was only one postal mailbox, that is the dimensional sticker, so I chose to use the chipboard presents. So there are my completed cards for that design. For my next card, I have the star pattern paper that measures 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and then I cut 2 strips of gold mirror cardstock. One is 5 3/8 by 1/4 inch, and then the other one is 4 1/8 by 1/4 inch. And I'm basically just making this card look like a present that's all wrapped up. So the actual pattern paper, those gold stars, they are gold foiling, and it matches perfect with the gold mirror cardstock. So I think that looks really pretty. I'm adding this large red bow from the ephemera pack, and I did pop it up with some foam underneath. And then I'm going to add one of the puffy sticker sentiments. This one says "Happy." I'll add that in the bottom right hand corner, and then I will add the puffy sticker that says "Christmas" in the bottom right as well. And then I'll take this layer and I will add it to a piece of red cardstock that measures 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 inches, and then I'll add that to an A2 size white card base. I did create 2 of these cards, but because I did not have the word "happy" in another puffy sticker, instead I'm using these red glitter alphabet stickers, and I'm going to spell out the word Merry. I'm also taking the word Christmas cheer, that is a sentiment, and I just cut off the word cheer and I'm just going to use the word Christmas. So my sentiment will say Merry Christmas. So I'm going to go ahead and line up these letters in the bottom right hand corner. And after I do that, I will add this to a A2 size card base, and that will give me 2 similar cards. So here's a look at my 2 completed cards. And moving on, I'm going to be using one of the 3x4 sentiment sheets for my sentiment on my card. So I have a piece of black cardstock and it measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I cut down a piece of gold mirror cardstock to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I did cut out the center of the gold mirror cardstock just so I could save it for another project. And then I have the black and white checkerboard paper that's 4 and 5 1/4. So all of those pieces of paper are layered up one on top of another. I also have the star paper. I did cut that to 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. That will be layered underneath the large sentiment towards the right side. So I'll go ahead and glue that down, and I will add the sentiment on top. And I'm going to use the smaller house ephemera piece for the bottom left of the sentiment. So the sentiment says, "May your home be filled with love and peace and joy." So I thought that by adding that house ephemera piece would be a perfect addition to this card. I'm also going to add some of these gold snowflakes to my card. I'll finish this up by adding it to an A2 size card base. And I did complete 2 of these cards, and these are similar in every way. For my next card, I have a piece of striped pattern paper. I cut that to 4 by 4 3/4, and I will add it to the piece of solid red cardstock that's 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I cut down the wood grain green paper to 4 by 1 inch, and I'm going to add that towards the bottom. I'm going to stamp on the wreath ephemera piece a sentiment. So I'm using one of the sentiments from the stamp set that came with this kit, and the stamp that I'm going to use is Warmest Wishes. I felt that that stamp fit the best inside of the wreath, so I'm just going to stamp it down with some black ink. I'm also going to add the fireplace. So I thought it would be cute to have the fireplace at the bottom and then the wreath hanging over the fireplace. So you can see that the fireplace, it's towards the bottom of the card and it looks like it's sitting on the wood floor. And then the striped pattern paper is meant to be like the wall of the house. I also added the stockings to go across the fireplace. And then that's added to an A2 size card base. And lastly, I am adding my Spellbinders Gold Essential Gem Mix, just a few of them, to the inside of the wreath just to add a little bit of sparkle. These gems are not part of the kit. They are separate. And I chose to use these because these are much smaller than the ones that are included in the kit, and I didn't want anything really large. So there's my completed card. I only created one of those. And moving on to my next card, I cut down the house paper to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then I have some other pieces of pattern paper. The red with white polka dot is 2 by 3 1/2. The plaid paper is 4 by 1 1/2. And the wood grain paper is 3 1/2 by 2 1/2. So I'm just layering them as you see me do here on the screen. And I'm going to add the ephemera in the middle of the wood grain paper. I'm going to use the old-fashioned red pickup truck, and I'll put the Merry Christmas banner underneath it. I'm going to add a black banner at the top right-hand corner of the card, and I'm going to add the number 25. I'll add this to a black piece of cardstock. It measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then I'll add that to the A2 size card base. I'm adding a glue dot at the top of the tag, and then I took a piece of twine from my stash and I added it to the top of that tag. I'm adding a couple of the gold gems next to the sentiment. And I did use the Mojo Monday card sketch number 533 for the layout of this card, and I did complete 2 identical cards. For my next card, I am going to be using the large sentiment that says Merry and Bright. So I'm going to add that to a piece of gold mirror cardstock. It measures 3 1/16 by 4. And then I have a piece of the darker red cardstock that's cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I'm adding the flower paper to the top of that. The flower paper I cut to 4 by 4 1/4. And then I have this green with white striped paper that I cut to 4 by 1 3/4. And I'll add that towards the bottom. So just adding a couple different pieces of pattern paper for my layer there. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the sentiment right in the middle. I'm going to add the dimensional candy cane sticker over top of the bottom left-hand corner of the sentiment. And then I'm going to add that layer to an A2 size card base. I'm going to finish up this card by adding a few of the round gold gems. I'll add 3 of them, 1 in the bottom right and 2 in the top left corner of the sentiment piece. I do create 2 of these cards, but for the second card, instead of using a dimensional sticker, I popped up the ephemera candy canes, which looks identical to the sticker. For my next card, I cut the polka dot pattern paper to 3 3/4 by 2 3/4, and I'm going to create a little scene on this piece of pattern paper with some of the ephemera. So I have the trees, the mailbox, the snowman, and 1 present. And I'm just going to go ahead and glue those down to create my scene. So I'm going to glue down the trees first because those are going to be in back of everything else. And then I'll add the single present. I will glue down the mailbox, and then I'm also going to pop up the snowman. So I'm going to put some of the dimensional foam on the back so it's like he's standing in front of all of these other objects. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue down these 2 striped panels. They both measure 1.5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. So I'll glue them down to the pattern paper with the red with the white words, and that paper measures 5 1/4 by 4. So I'll go ahead and glue everything down, and then I'm going to add the Happy Holidays. I do have some foam on the ends, but I'm going to put some glue in the middle because the middle part of that sentiment will adhere to the snowman's body. The pieces on the end of that sentiment will adhere to the actual card layer. Okay, so that's going to be added to an A2 size white card base. And then to finish up this card, I'm going to add some of the gold puffy sticker snowflakes. And for this card design, I was inspired by Card Sketch OWH22, and I created 2 of these cards. For my next card, I have a piece of red with the white polka dot pattern paper, which I cut down to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 inch square. And I have a piece of white cardstock that I cut to 3/4 inches by 1 inch. And I just cut a hill out of it. And I'm going to be using both pieces of that white cardstock to create my hills. So I'm going to layer 1 in the front, and then 1 will be layered in the back. So that's going to add some depth to this scene. So I'll go ahead and glue one of them down to the bottom of the pattern paper, and then I'm going to put the glue on the other one and add it to the back side of that hill. I'm going to add the sleigh on the right side, and then I'll add the reindeer on the left. I'm going to tuck the feet of the reindeer in the hill so it's like it's walking in the snow. I cut the music note paper down to 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and I'll go ahead and put glue on the back and add that to my card base. This is an A2 size card base, and then I'll add the scene on top, but I'm going to shift it to the left a little bit. Next, I'm going to take this music note ephemera piece and add it to the top right side, and then I'm going to take the Jingle All the Way sentiment banner, and I'm going to put some foam on the back, and I'm going to add that to the top of the music note ephemera piece. I'm going to add some of the peppermint swirl chipboard stickers to my card, as well as the candy cane chipboard sticker to the sleigh. I also added some of the gold puffy sticker stars, and I created two cards using this design. Only one of them is in the portrait layout and the other one is in the landscape layout. And the only reason for the change is because when I was cutting the music note pattern paper, I ended up cutting it 4 inches wide instead of 5¼ inches wide. For my next card, I have a piece of the black plaid paper that's cut to 4 5¼ and then I cut a little piece of the green and white pattern paper to 4 by 1 inch, and I went ahead and added that to my card base, and then I'm going to add this ephemera piece of the front door. I'm also going to add a couple of trees on the left and right and the deer on the bottom. So I wanted this to look like it was the front of a house with trees in front of the house and the deer sitting at the front steps. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the word home. This is a puffy sticker, and then the for the holidays to finish that sentiment, and that was also a puffy sticker. And that completes this card. For my next card, I have a piece of gold mirror cardstock cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I did cut the center out using a rectangle die just so that I can save that piece of gold cardstock for another project. I added the gold cardstock to the front of the A2 size card base, and then I have a piece of the green and black paper, and that's cut to 4 by 5¼ and I added the tree paper to the bottom of that, and that tree paper is 4 by 1¼ and then I have that gold strip of paper that's 4 by 1/4 inch, and I went ahead and added the strip to the front of that design as well. And then all of those pieces will be added to the gold mirror cardstock. I'm going to use the tag that says family and friends are the true gift of Christmas, and I'll add that to the card front. I'm also going to add the bow. It's the green and white bow, and I'll add that to the top of the tag. And then to finish this up, I'm going to add 3 of the gold stickers to the front of the card. And for this design, I used the MFT 268 card sketch, and I created 2 of these cards. The card on the right, I used a different piece of pattern paper at the top, and the tree pattern paper I ended up cutting a little bit shorter, and that was just by accident. I also want to mention that for some of the additional enamel dot stickers, I end up using some of the extra gold ones from my stash, and they were just from a previous Spellbinders card kit that I had received in the past. For my next card, I'm going to let the pattern paper do most of the work for me. So I cut this pattern paper down to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and I added it to the dark red cardstock that measures 5½ by 4 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and add the word peace, love, and joy from the puffy sticker sheet. I'm going to add some foam to the back of the dove ephemera piece, and I'll also add some of the snowflakes. So I'll add a large snowflake to the bottom left and a smaller one to the top right, and then I'll add this layer to my A2 size card base. I will finish up this card by adding some of the enamel sticker dots in the center of the snowflakes. So I'm going to choose to use the green ones because the green matches the word peace. And that will complete this card, and I did create 2 of these. For my second card, I added the words joy to the world from the puffy stickers and added some red enamel stickers to the center of these snowflakes, and also backed it up on some red cardstock from my stash. For my next card, I have 2 pieces of pattern paper. Both are cut to 2 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to layer them onto the red cardstock that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Now I do take some red cardstock from my stash because the kit only comes with a few pieces of red cardstock, and I thought that the red would look so much better with this pattern paper than with some of the other colors in the kit. The kit does include some pink, orange, and blue cardstock as well, but I didn't think that these pattern papers would go with any of those colors. So I will be pulling out some red cardstock from my stash for the remainder of my cards. I did cut a red 3.5-inch circle and a white 3-inch circle, and I'm going to layer those onto my card layer. And the silver mirror cardstock is measured at 1/2 inch by 4 inches, and I'm going to add that as well. I'm going to bring in this chipboard sticker of the house, and then I'm going to add the Peace and Joy banner from the ephemera pack. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to an A2 size card base. And I'll add a few of the silver gems to the card. I do add some glue to the back because some of them are not as sticky as I would like them to be. So I just wanted to add some glue to make sure they stay adhered to the card front. And for the design of this card, I did follow the Mojo Monday Sketch 523, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I'm using the large sentiment that says Christmas is better when we are together, and I'm going to add that to a piece of red cardstock that measures 3 inches by 4 inches. The pattern paper with the flower baskets on it measures 4 by 5 1/4, and I'll add that to the solid red cardstock that's 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then I have some polka dot paper that's 2 by 5 1/4 and some checkerboard paper that's 4 inches by 2 inches, and I'll go ahead and layer those on to the larger card layer, and then I'll add the sentiment to the top. Next, I'm going to add this to an A2 size card base, and I'll finish this up by adding some of these red gems to the front of the card. And I created 2 of these cards. For my next card, I have a 3-inch circle cut out of some green cardstock, and I'm going to layer up some of this ephemera. I have a piece of mail and some stamps that I'm going to layer onto the circle, and then I'm going to take a piece of the flower pattern paper and cut to 4 by 3.5 inches and layer that onto some lighter green cardstock that's 4 by 5 1/4. I will add the red and white polka dot paper, which I cut to 1 7/8 by 4 3/4, and I'll layer that on top. I'm going to go ahead and add a sentiment. My sentiment says "'Tis the season," and I add the circle to the top as well, and then add that to an A2 size card base. I will add some gold gems to the front of the card, but I am using the ones from my stash because I didn't have any more of the ones from the kit. And for this card, I was inspired by Mojo Monday 547 card sketch. I did create 2 of these cards, but with my second card, when I was cutting that pattern paper, I ended up cutting it a little bit smaller just by mistake. And at this point, I had run out of all of my gold gems, so I added some of the gold sequins that came with the kit. So with my next card, I have 2 strips of pattern paper. Both are measured at 1 3/4 inches by 4 7/8 inches. I add the strips onto a piece of red cardstock that's 4 by 5 1/4. I also have a 3.5 inch white circle and a 3-inch red circle, which I'm going to layer those onto each other. And I cut a piece of solid green cardstock that's 4 by 2 inches. I'm going to add the snow globe in the middle of the circles, and I'll also add the Merry Christmas chipboard sticker sentiment to the front. I'll add this to a white A2 size card base and add a few of the gold sequins to the card. I created 2 of these cards, and for the second card I used the different pattern paper, and I also used a Merry Christmas ephemera sentiment. So here again are the cards that I created with the Spellbinders Santa Lane Christmas Kit. I would love to know which card is your favorite, so leave me a comment down below. Again, I will also have links to this kit down in the description box below, so if you're interested in purchasing this kit, check those links out. And be sure to stop by my blog at lisamearsdesigns.com for up-close pictures and card measurements. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a great day. Bye-bye.